Hello there everyone, how you doing today? I hope you're all well. Today we're going into r/entitled people, where today one of our stories is an entitled teacher cutting a student's insulin pump to prove a point she was wrong about to begin with. If you enjoy, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment down below. Now, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Aunt shows up at my house with all of her stuff and tells me, not ask, that she's going to be living with me for a while. So, without getting too political, we recently had an election in the US. My aunt supported one side, while her husband and adult offspring supported the other side. The election did not go the way my aunt wanted it to. The aunt proceeded to flip her shit, breaking things, yelling, even going as far as to set her daughter's "I voted" sticker on fire. Her husband called the cops, and the cops declined to arrest her for anything, but suggested she find a different place to stay for the night. This happened yesterday in New Jersey. Fast forward to 2 a.m. today. Here I am sleeping peacefully in my home with my family, over 500 miles away from all that drama. My fence alarm goes off, waking me up. I don't know if it's a bear or a trespasser, so I get my pants on and grab my shotgun just to be safe. Turns out my aunt cut the lock off my front gate because she couldn't get in and I wasn't answering my phone. And why did she even have bolt cutters in her car? So I safely stow my weapon and ask her, what in the actual flippin' floggers? She starts crying and screaming. Mind you, this is at 2 a.m. in a quiet rural community, about how the devil took her family and they threw her out. And she says since she has nowhere else to go, I need to let her in, so she can stay in my guest room for a while. I told her one of my guildies is using that room right now. The room is occupied. This person came from Texas all the way to West Virginia to hang out with me. I'm not going to toss them out with 30 seconds of notice, all because my aunt showed up. So, she decides to call the police and tell them that I'm keeping her from entering her home. We're out in the woods, so the cops don't get here quick. 4:41 a.m., the cops show up. I see them talking to her in my driveway. She shows them the bolt cutters in the ruined lock. A few minutes later, the officer knocks on my door. Your tenant claims that, and I immediately cut him off and tell him that I do not have a tenant. I own and occupy this structure. I offer to show him the deed. Well, this woman claims, and I cut him off again. What's the address on her ID say? At this point, the cop is angry at me. I can tell. So I try to de-escalate the situation. Look, man, she doesn't live here. She has never lived here. That's my aunt. She lives in New Jersey. Please check her ID card. The cop calms down a little bit and lets me know that he will talk to her, and then comes back. 10 minutes later, the cops come back to my door. 3 of them this time, not just the one from earlier. One of them had stripes and a rocker on his arm, so I could tell he was important. He asks if there's any way my aunt can stay here for the night, because she's too drunk to drive, so we can't let her back on the road. This woman just drove from New Jersey to West Virginia drunk. Thank God she didn't kill anyone. I told them that she cannot stay here, but that I'm sure there's room in the local jail. The cop asks me if she can just sleep in her car in my driveway and leave in the morning, and I tell him absolutely not. When she wakes up in the morning, I would just have to call them to come get her off my property, so that would solve nothing. I ask them to remove her from my property. Long story short, her car got towed, and she is in the drunk tank, no charges pending for the night. So much for sleeping tonight. My kids need to be up for school soon. My teacher cut the tube for my insulin pump because we couldn't have headphones in class. This happened when I was in middle school. You know, back in the days of wired headphones, so about 2011 or something. I've currently been a type 1 diabetic since I was about 4 years old, and I use a continuous glucose monitor and an insulin pump. I had an IEP, so all my teachers were told about it, and that I would need my insulin pump in class. That it might make noise, and I might have to pull it out of my pocket and mess with it if I needed insulin, or I might need a drink from a juice pouch, and I was able to do so at my discretion. We had one teacher who was a complete hard-ass for no reason. She was notorious for making kids cry during presentations. She even told one girl who wanted to be a doctor to find a cure for cancer because her little sister had childhood cancer, that she would need to actually be smart to do that, while chuckling to herself. Let a kid dream, man. We were like 12 years old. And as you can imagine, she was also at war with technology. And on a side note, these days I use my phone to check my glucose and give myself an insulin bolus. I can't imagine being a kid today and dealing with a teacher like that when the lines are blurred and your smartphone actually is a life-saving medical device. But anyway, if you're not familiar with insulin pumps, the kind I use has a little tube that connects the pump, which has the insulin to my body, which needs the insulin. The teacher also liked to be weirdly obtuse about things. Instead of being like other teachers and simply saying something like, "No cell phones in class, put it on my desk," which would allow me to remind them it's an insulin pump, and they usually say something like, "That's right, my bad." She would instead try to talk abstractly about what she wanted to happen while walking around the room. So this particular day, she kept alluding to students listening to music in class, that you should be careful what you do because she can see it, that us kids think we're so sneaky, but the adults know what we're up to. I obviously wasn't listening to music, so I figured she'd seen someone with headphones in the room. And the next thing I know, she's behind me. She snuck up behind me with scissors. It took me a good moment to realize exactly what happened, because I was astonished. I was used to teachers thinking I had a cell phone, or getting upset about my pump beeping during an exam, but no one had ever touched it before, much less cut my life-sustaining tube. I was actually sitting with my mouth agape, and she turned to me, now that she was at the front of the class again, and said something along the lines of, "Mr. O.P., care to share what tunes are more important than listening to class?" At this point, put together that she thought I was listening to music. She thought she cut my headphone wires. I replied, "Just the sound of my thoughts while I've still got any, because that was my insulin pump." She had to let me go to my locker to get my cell phone, to call my mom to bring me a new infusion set. My parents insisted no cell phones until high school, but my mom was also scared with me being type 1 diabetic and too dyslexic to remember a phone number, and wanted me to easily be able to call her, so she got me a $15 Walmart phone and put minutes on it. Now I feel old. Then I waited for the front office for her. She worked from home and drove like a bat out of hell. She was so angry. I don't ever want to see her that angry again in my life. It took 10 years off of me, and I wasn't even in trouble. The teacher had to apologize to me, and all the teachers got some more disability accommodation training or something. Kinda anticlimactic end, but a friend thought it was entertaining, and I should share. Entitled coworker tries to hijack our wedding. My lady wife is the anti-Karen, the anti-bridezilla. On our first date, she found out a stack of restaurant coupons and said, "Where do you want to take me?" And we picked Pizza Hut. Her engagement ring is a heart-shaped amethyst with two little diamond chips. I bought it at Kmart. She cherishes it. Her wedding dress did not come from a bridal shop. It came from a Sears catalog. It's a very simple white lace straight tea-length dress with a cream underdress. Would not be out of place at any afternoon tea. I bought my three-piece navy pinstripe suit. I needed a suit anyway. We wore the same clothes with different accessories to a costume party as 1920s gangster and his mole. We had the wedding at our church. Our pastor was the real deal. He blessed the rings, and when he handed them back to us, they were ice cold. We exchanged the old wedding vows, then King James Bible style. My lady wife nixed the obey, though. A couple of my buddies found out at the last minute that they could make it, and showed up after we said our vows. They pulled out swords and made an impromptu arch for us to walk under. My wife's friends were upset and started yelling, "Nobody told us to bring our swords." Yeah, major sci-fi, fantasy, D&D, medieval geeks on both sides of the aisle. The reception was in the community room at the volunteer fire department I belonged to. Not fancy, but so informal and chill, and practically free. A local supermarket with an awesome hot food bar catered. Everyone had so much fun. My boss's boss, a good friend, gorgeous blonde, showed up in her little black dress, and appropriately flirted with my buddies. I don't think anyone will forget the pillow mint fight that broke out. A few of my wife's older relatives seemed sort of confused at the antics at first, but they ended up having a blast. My father-in-law had set a rough budget for the wedding in his head. My lady wife came in way under that, so he gave us the difference in cash at the reception. He was already paying for the honeymoon as his wedding present to us. The honeymoon was within a day's drive and was a huge deal for what we got. My lady wife remembers the complete total was spent by us and father-in-law was $2,000 in 1992, which included the honeymoon. So just under $4,500 US today. 32 years together, 31 years married this October. Next anniversary, I'm going to take a page from my granddad and raise a toast to 5 years of a wedded bliss. And now, here's the hijacking. When my lady wife announced our engagement, one of her co-workers, who isn't even a friend, apparently got wedding rabies. She was so happy and went over the top, offering to help. My lady wife was doing the tiny amount of wedding planning that was needed, as her MOH lived in New Jersey. We're in upstate New York and had 2 kids to look after. The co-worker insisted that it wasn't fair to my wife, that the maid of honor wasn't doing the wedding planning. She kept trying to insert herself as the wedding planner. Nice of her to offer, but she wanted to arrange our wedding the way she wanted it. Whiskey, tango, foxtrot? Nah, we did not want the frou-frou centerpiece thingies or any of that nonsense. The co-worker, not knowing my wife well, of course had zero clue what our tastes are. My wife's maid of honor was already making custom silk flowers for us, and the tables as a wedding present. I think co-worker was delusional enough to think that she could weasel her way into being maid of honor. My wife kept politely but firmly shutting her down. The last straw was when co-worker called me to tell me about the surprise bridal shower she was throwing for my wife, so I could get her there. Oh, hell no. First, my wife was already going to have a bridal shower at our house. The father and I went down to the fire hall and watched baseball. Secondly, my wife hates surprise parties. Third, my wife would never have picked that restaurant. An overpriced steakhouse is the absolute last restaurant we would ever pick. Fourth, who the heck was coworker planning on inviting? She didn't know any of my wife's friends. The wife shut that down hard. She immediately called coworker and told her off. No meltdown, no yelling, no screaming, no bad language or insults, just pure anger, as hot and as bright as a welder's torch. Cue the tears from coworker. I was just trying to help. Nope, denied. We joke that you need to keep my lady wife away from breakable objects when she's angry. Cities, mountain ranges, that kind of fragile stuff. Kinda like that lady's ego. The drama was over, and the wedding happened. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. Remember to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and leave a comment down below with your thoughts. I will see you all next time. Hasta la pasta.